Everyone, so in this video I am going to be doing a little letter with me, and I'm going to take you through my whole process of how I do a design. So the first thing I do is I do some sketching in my little notebook here. This is just a composition notebook. I get these at the Dollar Tree for just $1, and they're great because I can just sketch in them, and I just do a lot of rough sketches and I just get ideas out. So for today's video, I want to do this quote here that says, "Rest is not lazy." So the first thing I would do is open up my iPad here, and I use my 7th generation iPad and my Apple Pencil, and I have a matte screen protector on here. So from there, I am going to make a new canvas. Up at the top right, I hit the plus sign and I click screen size. That is the canvas size that I like to work in. And then I'm going to go to add and take a photo. So I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of my sketch, and I will be right back. So once I take that picture, I'm going to go ahead and I will make this nice and large to fit. I like to make it large enough to fit on the screen or on the canvas like so. And from here, I will then add some new layers above the sketch. You can also lock your layer, but I don't personally do that. I just like to add a bunch of layers in between to add some cushion. If I undo too many times, I won't end up drawing on my background. And I am going to be using one of my brushes from my brush pack that you can grab on my Etsy. The link is always in my bio on Instagram, or it's etsy.com/shop/Christina Campbell art. So I'm using this brush called Kenzie. I will just give you a little preview. It is a squared off solid brush like this, and I will be going over this design using this brush. So what I like to do is I like to make the brush pretty thick, but not too thick, so that the letters aren't going to be hitting into each other when I go over this. So I think that's probably a good size. And I'm going to go ahead and start tracing each letter. For this, I'm going to be using a combination of just drawing over the sketch, but I will also be showing you another little trick that helps get certain shapes. Like in this E here, I will be showing you a little trick, and probably in the S as well. So for the R, I am just going to draw a perfectly vertical line. Hold down with your other hand with one finger to keep it snapped to a perfectly vertical line. And then I'm going to let go with the pencil and then let go with my finger. And from there, I will go and grab this little shape here. Now, a trick that I'm going to show you: if you hold down on a shape after you draw it out, you're going to see at the top it's going to say ellipse created or shape created, whatever shape you drew out. Hold down and now hit edit shape. And I'm going to play around with this to get it to line up with that shape, and there we go. And then from here, I'm going to do this swoop, so I can either just draw it out like this and let go, or again, I can do that trick where I draw it out and then hold down, and I can hit edit shape. So either way, just to get that little swoop in here. So I'm gonna add a new layer now. I'm going to change the color, and I am going to go ahead and do the E. So for the E, I'm going to do that same trick. I'm going to draw out my shape and hold down until I get the edit shape option at the top. Move that around a bit, and the same thing is going to go for the bottom half. I'm going to add a new layer for the bottom half of the E. That way I can move it around if I need to. Edit shape. And that looks pretty good. And if that's how I want it, I'm gonna click off of it with the arrow. Go back to my layers, and now you can pinch these two together to combine them into one. Now I can move that whole layer, and I want to turn it a tiny bit, move it up a tiny bit. I like to have my letters sit inside of each other. So see how this part of the R is supporting the E. I really like how that looks. And now for the S. So I'm gonna add another layer to do the S. I'm gonna change this brush color again. So the S I'm going to take in a few steps, I think. First I'm going to try it out just like this. So I think I like how that looks, but I want to shut off the background to make sure. Yes, so I really like how that came out. So I'm going to leave it as is. Otherwise I would have done it something along the lines of doing this, where I use that edit shape tool to draw out an S like this. But I think it looks cool the original way, so I am just going to undo and leave it as is. And I'm going to do the T on a new layer as well. Draw out this section, edit shape to move it over, and I'm going to use that trick again to get a perfect line. So there we go, we have the rest section complete, and I don't really like how tight the E and the R are up here, so I'm actually going to move the S and the E. So to select both, I'm going to select on the S, and then I'm going to swipe to grab that E as well. I'm going to move them both over and up a tiny bit to give some room. And then I'm going to take just the R and I'm going to rotate it a tiny bit. So there's rest. I really like how that looks, and I kind of like these colors as well, but we'll see at the end if I'm going to end up changing them. Now that rest is done, I'm going to pinch to combine this entire word, and I'm going to add a new layer to begin on lazy. So I'm going to do lazy next. I'm going to turn that layer back on. I'm going to grab this salmon color, and I'm going to do the L just like so. So you can just draw it out. If you're using this Kenzie brush, you have pretty good control over the brush as is, or again, you can do this trick where you hold down. A lot of times you'll get this weird shape with an L. You can hit edit shape and change it then at the top and have it look like that, but I really preferred it the original way like that. Now I'm going to add another. As you can see, I just drew on my background layer. So I'm going to undo and go back to the top and redo the L. You have to be really careful about that. That's why it's good to lock the background, but I just never really do it. Maybe I will for this video. Add another layer. I'm gonna use the yellow, I guess, next. And again, draw over the A. Get that little curve in here. A good trick with this brush, you want to keep moving your pencil. You don't want to stand still in one spot because you're going to get a little stamp effect if you do that. So just keep your brush moving. And oh no, I undid my nice A that I had. Let me try that again. But whenever I do a letter, I usually have to keep redoing it till I get it just how I like it. That, and I'm going to add another layer and grab this blue here. Same for the Z. That, I'm going to shut off the background to make sure that looks okay. I think that looks pretty good. I might redo the Z at the end, but I will show you if I do. And here we go, one more layer for the Y. Now you don't have to put everything on its own layer, but I just think that it works out better that way. I'm not going to follow the actual Y too perfectly just because I think that it hit into the Z too much, so I'm going to kind of redo it here, and I'm going to add a new layer to finish the rest of the Y. That, and now I can move it a tiny bit if I want to line up the top of the Y a little better. And let me shut off the background. And I'm really liking how that's looking, but I don't really like how this part of the Y and that part don't line up. There's something weird going on in there. The good thing is I can now actually erase. Oops. I can erase this part of this Y. Like that. Oops. Just want to erase the very top like that. Okay. So, rest and lazy are done, but now you can see that lazy is a little bit further to the right than rest. So I'm going to take the entire word of lazy, I'm going to pinch to combine it, and I'm going to move it over to the left a little bit. Now I have to do the is not. So I'm going to show you a trick, but first let me do this. Okay, so on the Kenzie brush, I want to keep this size because I might be fixing the Z at the end. I want to make sure everything stays the consistent brush size. So instead of shrinking this brush and losing that size and trying to match it up again, I'm actually going to duplicate this brush. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and shrink the brush down to use for the is not words, and then when I want to go back to the other brush, it's still going to be there at that right size. So, good little trick to not lose your brush size. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of roughly go over this. I'm not following it perfectly because this wasn't too perfect to begin with. So I'm going to show you the S is a little bit challenging. You just want to try to get your two little loops to match up nicely like that. N is one of my hardest letters. A capital N. I usually don't even do them following like this because I don't like how that looks. I usually do my N's like this instead. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that for this design as well. I almost never do my ends with the little crossbar. I'm gonna grab the yellow, I think. I might end up changing the colors of this part, but we will see. And again, I'm going to probably need the red to do the knot. That. And now I'm gonna zoom out. Shut that off. And I really like how this is looking, minus the colors in is not kind of go too close to, like, I don't like the blues are so close to each other and then the reds are so close to each other here. So I am gonna try to swap this and this. Pretty much the same thing, but that's okay. I will play with the colors a bit in a minute. So in terms of the actual design and letters, I really like how this is looking, and I am going to crop my canvas now to fit a square. So I'm going to go to crop and resize. Let me show that again. You go up to the wrench, go to the canvas section, crop and resize, and it fits nicely in this direction. So I'm going to take this number 1620 and I'm going to change this to 1620. Then you can actually move over the canvas, and I need to make room to have my little at part of my name here so I can mark my design with my name so nobody steals it. So I'm actually going to make this 1800 and 1800 and see if that will give me enough room, and it's still not, so I'm going to change it to 1900 and 1900. And that should work. And I use these as guides to make sure everything is nice and evenly spaced out in terms of this side and this side. I will hit done, and I think I actually need to move this up a tiny bit. It's a little bit too close to the bottom now. Okay, and there's going to be my little at, which I will add in a minute. but I really like how this is looking. So from here, I'm going to combine all of these layers with each other. I'm going to add a background underneath here. I'm going to make a nice light peach color, I think. Maybe a tiny bit. Well, I could either make the background lighter, or instead I'm actually going to duplicate this, and I'm going to grab this color that's in here and make it a little bit darker. Drag it in, and now I'm going to drag my hand all the way to the right, and that's going to recolor the whole thing a little bit darker. So that looks a lot better. And I think I'm going to also add some stars into this. So I did create a star brush, a star stamp a while back. I just have it in here. I used my flower brush to recreate it into a star. But I am just going to use this brush to make some stars. I'm thinking about selling this very soon, so be on the lookout for that. I'm gonna rotate this a little bit, and I will add one more, a little bit bigger here. Rotate it a little so they don't all look exactly the same. I'm gonna make this one blue. And then I'm going to take this whole section with the selection tool, grab the arrow, 3 fingers down, oops, grab the arrow, 3 fingers down, copy and paste. Flip it over, and that's looking pretty good. And now I'm going to go and add my name under here. So I go up to the wrench, add text, and I start typing out my name. It already comes up, and then I just need my underscore. Edit the style. I did import some fonts onto my iPad, and I use the Comforta font for my little watermark or little tag at the bottom. Shrink it down just a little bit. So it's below my name, and I'm gonna move it over just a little bit, and I think that looks pretty good. I also want to add a little bit of texture to this, so I'm going to also do that now. I'm gonna make a new layer. I like to use like a gray color, like this color. It's just like a gray color. And to do this, I'm going to the water section, and I'm gonna grab the Mad Splashes brush, and I just kind of do some dots all around the paper. And from here, you're gonna play with the blending mode. So you go to your layers, tap this N here, and you can actually scroll through and see what you like and what you don't like. So once I scroll through, I'm going to decide which one looks the best. It's something at the top, so like darken, and then I'm going to turn down the opacity a little bit like this. It just gives it a little bit of texture in there. So I really like how that looks. You could always still add a couple of little spots if you wanted to. But yeah, I think that's pretty much done. And now I'm going to combine these 2 layers along with the text. So I'm gonna pinch to combine that. Now I'm gonna duplicate this, and I'm gonna make some more color palettes out of it. So one way I do that, I would pick a color like, let's say pink, and I'm gonna drag this pink into the S, and then I'm gonna drag my hand to the right to recolor the whole thing. So that's another color palette I got out of it. Duplicate that again. Pick another color, maybe like a green, and try it in the E here. a little too light, something a little darker maybe. Again, duplicate and try another. I'm gonna grab a light purpley, like a periwinkle. I'm gonna put it in the S, oops, into the S and see what I get. I don't love that, but from here what I can do is go to the adjustments at the top and go to hue, saturation, brightness, and now I can play with the hue at the bottom. So I've been doing that quite a bit as well, and I really like playing with that. So I love how that came out. I've made it more of an orangey green color. I'm gonna duplicate this again, and again I will see what else I can get out of it, playing with the hue saturation section. From here, I can also go to color balance right under hue saturation and play with that a little bit as well. So there's a lot you can do. You could also go to shadows and just mess with the shadow colors, like the darker colors, or you can go to the highlights and mess with just the highlights. And from there, I would go to the wrench, hit share, JPEG, and save image. And that is how I would do this design from sketch to exporting. And I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope that this was helpful. And I will definitely be doing some more. Leave some comments and let me know what else you guys would like to see. And thank you guys for watching.